Andrew may or may not be with us today. He's been driving down this morning, so we'll just carry on, Abraham. If he signs in, he signs in.
Yep.
Get my little aid memoirs.
It's just afternoon to everyone. Welcome for joining. And please give us a moment or two where other people join. If you'd like to use the chat, tell us where you're from. That would be great. It helps other people who are joining as well give a view. We are going to be using Slido today. So for those of you who are familiar with it, please go ahead. Today's code will obviously be LM031221. For those of you who wish to use QR reader,
Sorry.
it's up on the left-hand side of your screen now. What we're going to do is we're going to run through the questions this morning. So please do participate. In terms of any questions you have during the session, please do use the Q&A in Slido. That means that everyone else can see the questions being asked and of course can vote for them if they think that's the question that they'd like to see answered first. Given that we probably won't have a huge number today, given that Max has kindly stepped in at short notice, if we get into conversations, we can always bring people either on through their microphone, or you can join us through microphone and screen if they so wish. So I think what we'll start to do is let's work through the questions now, please, Abraham, and we can get going. So the first question, very simply, will come in a moment, hopefully. Do you want to put them up, Abraham, please?
Yeah, one second. Yeah.
Do you feel your company currently delivers projects digitally? So we got 5 stars today. So if you think it does, you can use 4, 5. If you want to sit in the middle, obviously we have a 3 option. So please give your rating. So let's put the second question up. Do you feel people play an important part when working digitally? Do you feel people play an important part when working digitally? The next question, please, and Abraham. Do you feel process plays an important part when working digitally?
I've just lost a screen. Uh-oh.
We'll keep going, Max, whilst you find your screen.
Apologies. Yeah, I'll sort that out.
Do you feel technology plays an important part when working digitally? What we just found out is technology does, because when a screen goes down. So yeah. And last question we have, do you feel there is fear or resistance to change within your organization? So we have 3 people who've actually filed their question. So we'll just give it a little bit longer so people can send in their results. We'll go back to the question in a minute. And of course, if you still continue to answer, you'll find the screen will change as the answers come through. So if we go back to the first question, then Abraham.
Just a point of comment there. I didn't realize I had hit the green send button. So after the final question, there's a green send button to submit your answers.
Yep. Okay, so if everyone has responded, we'll go to the first question, first answer. Do you feel your company currently delivers projects digitally? Got a fair range there, Max. Not a large number of data to work on, but a range.
Yeah, well, it's good to see that the majority is yes or above. So it's good to see that no one thinks that they don't deliver digitally. It'd be interesting to understand how people feel their digital adoption has maybe improved over the pandemic, or even if there are plans to further improve digital adoption moving forwards. But yeah, it's I'm seeing that over the past sort of 18, 24 months, there's been a trend in this direction. So that matches up. So that's good to see.
That's good. Okay, Abraham, let's have the second one. Do you feel people play an important part when working digitally? Well, someone obviously feels not. So, but quite a high trend at the other end there, Max, 4 and 5.
Very interesting. I'd love to speak to the person that doesn't believe that people play an important part to digitization. I would say people core to digitization, but it would be very interesting in the Q&A to have a conversation just around that. But yeah, it's good to see that the vast majority of people do believe that people are core to digitization. Certainly educating people around digital technologies is a pet project of mine, because if people feel enabled through technology, I tend to find that they're more effective and efficient at their position. But yeah, that'd be an interesting one to have a discussion around.
Okay, so the person who put that one in, please do ask a question, do come in later on. Do you feel process plays an important part when working digitally?
Again, not surprised by these results. Process really should be core, because technology is dumb. Technology, it can do all these fancy things, but it's underpinned by the process. So good to see that the audience is online with this one. So that's as expected.
Super. Okay, to the next one. Do you feel technology plays an important part when working digitally? Well, big stack up on 5 here.
Well, perfect. People believe that digital technologies are underpinned by technology, so that's at least a good thing. Whether technology is at the core of working digitally, it'd be good to have a discussion afterwards about what people feel around this.
Yeah, I suppose that's the question of, are people in control of the technology, or is it the technology that's controlling the people? But that we can come back to. Do you feel there is a resistance to change within your organization? Ooh.
Good split here. So a lot of people have said, yes, they do believe there is a fear or a sort of resistance to change. We do see this a lot in the construction sector, that people do find that technology can be a challenge. Some people are very nervous of it. Other people are very accepting of it. So yeah, interesting split there. And again, any questions around people's sort of resistance or how to improve digital adoption, that would be great to have as part of the conversation afterwards.
I suppose this question, and we'll come back to it no doubt, is whether people are fearful of change because of technology, or whether it's their fear of change behaviorally. And I think behavior in technology is quite an interesting topic in itself. So hopefully we can return for a bit of a chat about that one later on, Max.
Indeed.
So I'm gonna hand over to you now. So please take over, and I'll disappear in the background. And if people have questions, do not feel afraid to put them into the Q&A of Slido. Many thanks.
Fantastic. Well, hopefully you've all got me up full screen now. What I'm going to do is a bit of a video trickery. I'm going to put my slides there, and hopefully I should appear in the top corner. Hello. Right, I might disappear throughout the video and come back, but today, well, firstly, thank you for having me along at short notice to talk about digital project delivery. I appreciate that this was a very sort of last minute change, so I do appreciate having myself along to talk about what I'd like to talk about today. So I am the Director of Applied Technologies for Fulcro. Fulcro has been in the construction sector for 20 years now. We are traditionally mechanical, electrical, plumbing specialists. We have been involved in many of the high-rise buildings that you can see on the picture on the slide here in the centre of London. And in the last 20 years, we have delivered 28 hospital projects for the National Health Service. And this is where our technical speciality comes in around coordination of design services. So that is the history of the company. 6 years ago, I came out of academia to join Fulcro to drive the applied technologies arm. My division looks at everything from virtual and augmented reality to enable projects be delivered better with more transparency, through to the use of artificial intelligence and blockchain to really look at how we can improve technology use within the sector and deliver better project improvement through technology. So let me get started on my presentation here. Technology, well, you saw from the 3 questions at the beginning there, people, process, and technology. For us at Fulcro, it is very much the 3 legs of a stool that you want to stand on. If you've got the right people with the right process underpinning everything that they do, and then technology comes along as the cherry on top, which makes everyone efficient and able to do their jobs effectively. With those 3 things underpinning your project, you've got a good, stable project. Without the correct people, process, and technology, projects typically fail. And we've seen this over the last 20 years. We get involved in a lot of projects because they've already come to a crashing halt on site, whether that's because you've got the slab and the structure up and suddenly finding that the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing aren't engaging with the building correctly, not fitting within the building, or have not been coordinated in a way that they can be installed. But it all comes back to the people, the process, and the technology. If you get those things working correctly together, then you're off to a good start, and we see projects moving along quite nicely. A great example of a project that Fulcro were involved in was the London Olympic Stadium in 2012. Obviously, an extremely tight schedule to ensure that that project was delivered on time. The global eyes were watching our success as a country, so a critical piece of infrastructure, but equally making sure that we've got the right data contained within that building so that when we went out to redevelop that, and this is now West Ham's football stadium, and the surrounding areas being redeveloped to ensure the social aspect of the game's heritage moves forwards and is delivered. So all underpinned by people, process, technology, and the data. So critical to have those things in place. But equally, when you've got the right people and the right process and technology working together, we can start innovating. And innovation is a fantastically powerful tool that construction really isn't engaging with at the moment. I'm going to give you a stat before I talk about this project, just as something for you to go away and think about. If you look at the rise of electric vehicles and the automotive sector and the advancements that we've seen in the last 5 years alone, especially around EV vehicles, technology and innovation go hand in hand. Just a stat from the government's own data is with the innovation around EV and R&D, in automotive, 15% of revenue is returned as R&D. In construction, we spend a grand total of 0.001% of revenue on R&D. Now, imagine if we were innovating at the speed that the automotive sector was innovating, we'd have extremely powerful and game-changing changes to our sector, which we're just not seeing at the moment. So, on to innovation. The building you see here, this is 461 Dean Street. This is a project we were involved in a couple of years back. It is the world's tallest volumetric modular building, 32 floors with 2 floors of mechanical, electrical, plumbing plant on the roof, 363 apartments, 930 modules. Now, what do I mean by a module? Well, each block of that building wasn't actually built there. It was built 15 miles down the road in a factory. And we brought everything to site on the back of a low loader, and we were able to then lift those into position using a crane. And this was all delivered using DFMA, or Design for Manufacture. And this is a photo from that factory. We were able to lay out an entire floor of a building. Because everything was built at ground level, we never had anyone going up more than 3 steps on a step ladder. It was very efficient. Everything was built in a just-in-time manner, including the goods being put into the buildings, and everything left that factory 90% complete. We had the electrical systems tested. We had the water systems pressurized and checked. We had washing machines installed. We had tiles in the bathroom already on the walls. And they were shipped with a zipping pack, which would then go between each of the modules, so that once they were lifted onto site, which took about 20 minutes to come off a low loader, in the center of Brooklyn, New York, extremely busy, our laydown area within our site had enough room for 2 articulated lorries, and that was it. Lifting into position, we then had the trades and services all coming in and working straight away, which was fantastic. So real precision, real ability, real capability. And the innovation here didn't just stop at the construction. We had a program running called Helmets to Hard Hats, where we were bringing in ex-service personnel from Afghanistan and Iraq who were struggling to reintegrate into civilian life. And by giving them a trade, something for them to work on, something that they may have had experience of in the military, we're able to reintegrate them into civilian society and train them up into a new sector, in this case, construction. And we found that onboarding crews became a lot easier. We found that the teams worked a lot more coherently because everyone was working to a common goal. And what was really awesome about working in a factory environment, every unit shipped out of that environment was 100% checked off with plus or minus 3 millimeters tolerance on all items. Now, how often does that happen in construction? So design innovation underpinned by people, process, and technology is a fantastic thing. And what do I mean by technology? Well, that could be something such as 360-degree cameras used out on site. It could be gaming tools, which help people understand their environment they're building. It could be something like this. This is a 30-pound embedded computer. This is a Raspberry Pi. And we're starting to see these things becoming fabric of buildings, allowing us to monitor real-time sensors, so information about heating, light, occupancy, vibration, noise. All of that information can be fed back into a building management system, allowing us to engage teams in real time and buildings in real time. So a facilities manager can see immediately how their building's performing. Is it giving the environmental results that they'd expected or planned for during the design phase? What could they change to maybe reduce the amount of fossil fuels required to heat the building, such as when the sun is out, open the blinds automatically to let the sun in, heat the building up. When people are not in a room, turn the lights off to reduce the amount of fossil fuels being burnt to light a building. And considering 30% of electricity in a building is used through lighting, if we can automatically control the lights, then real power there for engaging those teams. Innovation doesn't just stop at delivering buildings, though. What about risk mitigation? Now, we all know of a tragedy that happened here in the United Kingdom, high-rise building that went up in flames. Things like fire stopping, absolutely critical to building delivery. Mitigation of risk, making sure that you have identified problems before getting out on site. A lot of projects, I mean, in the construction sector, it's shameful. 60% of projects are late, 70% of projects are over budget. So there's a good degree that are late and over budget. But being able to get out there and remove some of the rework on site, which is risk to a contractor, and being able to engineer out solutions earlier allows us to mitigate that risk and improve project delivery. So we, as Fulcro, there was a project we were engaged on where there was a legal battle between the client and the contractor, where they were talking specifically about fire stopping. And this is fire stopping within the building. So whenever a pipe or a service or a duct goes through a wall, whether the wall is fire rated or not, there has to be a certain degree or amount of fire stopping around those services penetrations. And we originally on this project in question were delivering about 4,000 detailed drawings showing the penetrations through each wall. through the legal battle, that went from 4,000 detailed drawings on this project to over 400,000. They wanted a per service, per wall, per penetration detailed 2D sheet. Now, as you can imagine, that would have taken a lot of time, a lot of resource to deliver. We estimated a team of 60, it would have taken them 6 months to deliver. We didn't have that resource internally. We couldn't buy in that resource at the speed required. So that left us with software. And we wrote some artificial intelligence that could go away, interrogate the three-dimensional model, and then adjust that three-dimensional model whenever a change was made. So in the case of an architect, if an architect moved a wall, the software would notice the wall had moved, redetail, and redraw all of those 2D sheets automatically. Equally, if a subcontractor moved a pipe or one of the services, again, we could rerun, just like clash detection you would. It ran the same sort of thing. It ran clash detection between all the pipes and the walls and updated. And we found that we're able to redetail the entire building in 6 minutes using a piece of software, rather than 6 months and 60, 70 personnel, 6 minutes to rerun the entire building. And what that allowed us to do was not remove humans from the job. It was remove the laborious work of creating the 2D sheet files and putting staff's time to take those 2D sheets and put them together and keep stacking them up. Rather than them spending that time, we could utilize their skills and their capability to go in and actually then sanity check that the artificial intelligence had produced sheets that made sense, engineer out better options, and improve their efficiency without having to take all the time that they would normally going away and manually detailing. And that was a fantastic success, to the point where that has become a product that we as Fulcro sell, and it's our Fulcro Builders Work Tools. It runs in AutoCAD, in Revit, and in Navisworks, and we can just draw all of the data sources down. So if a subby changes a model, we can rerun that detailing and spit out the coordinated sheets. And I'm just going to show you a video of that tool in action. So here you can see it running inside Revit. We've selected the wall, we select the services, we run the detection between the two. And what it will then do is automatically schedule out all of those openings as a codified table. That table will then look up on a per service, per wall basis, because you might have different penetration types for different walls. We can go in, color code those within the building, and it then becomes a scheduled asset within the model. So we can schedule them out, detail them, and then that will take that model, because it's known in 3 dimensions, will create the C sheets required to deliver those penetrations. So extremely powerful bit of software created to solve a problem through innovation. And that has been used to de-risk projects across the board. And that leads us into data. At the end of the day, everything we do in a digital world is underpinned by data. A lot of people see construction projects ending at RIBA stage 6. Handover, we've given it to the client, done, we're off. The client has to manage that building or that asset or that estate for the next 7,500 years. So rather than just being the industry that hands over a DVD at the end and go, there you go, Mr. Client, there's your building, thank you very much, give us our money, we'll be off now. We are handing over to the client a functional system that either integrates with their existing CAFAM technology, or gives them 3-dimensional models that they can go away, maintain and update themselves without having to have an in-depth knowledge about CAD, which enables them to go away and ensure that they are maintaining and running that building effectively. And this data could be as simple as a PDF instruction manual on how to commission a piece of equipment, or the right order to switch a bank of switches and valves on and off in order to spin up a plant or bring it down, right through to the detailed nitty-gritties of flow rates, so that if a valve was to fail or a pump was to fail, they could go out and procure the right one in the future. And this is the golden thread of data, or 20 years ago, it was single source modeling. It became coordinated design services, virtual design and construction, or VDC. Then it became BIM. Then it became digital twins. It doesn't matter what the buzzword is that you're using. It is the underlying data, the golden thread of information. And yes, we have to hand over based on the RIBA stages, but that information should flow throughout the project and beyond, so that that client then can look at repurposing their buildings in 50 to 70 years time, or even recycling them and knowing what physical quantities of steel they have in the building, how much aggregate they're going to have when they crush the building and how much they're going to have to ship off site. And all of that information should be part and parcel of their building's operation. They should know what are the sensors that I have commissioned inside my ductwork and what BMS system am I using so that I can effectively manage that asset. So it's all about ensuring the right people, the right process, and the right technology enables a smooth transition of information throughout a project. I just want to spin our minds to the sector as a whole. In construction, we are an aging sector. 25% of our workforce will be walking off the job in the next 15 years. That's a hell of a lot of experience to be losing through retirement. We need to be bringing in more people, young, fresh blood, interested in construction. But as a sector, we are seen as hard hat, high vis, muddy boots, not interested in school kids. This is one of the things that I'm passionate and Fulcro are passionate about is educating those future engineers. The picture you see here is from a brand new educational establishment in the West Midlands. This is the Black Country and Marches Institute of Technology at Dudley College. This is a brand new facility for educating 250 students a year in mechanical and medical engineering. These are the guys that are going to be developing the new COVID respirators and the new medical technologies, but equally looking at the systems that are going into smart construction, designed for manufacture. These are the future learners and future educators that are going to come out into our sectors to really drive us forwards. But we need to educate this future generation. And what's been fantastic, this building isn't just a building that they're going to learn in, it's a building they're going to learn from. It was delivered using the IPI, or Integrated Project Insurance model, which was one of the new procurement routes mandated in March 2016 as part of BIM Level 2. And what this means is, rather than being the usual fisticuffs between contractors and subcontractors and clients about, we need more money to finish this, you haven't done your work, so we're going to recharge you for not getting onto it in a decent time. The client forms a limited company with all of the parties involved. So the contractors, the MEP designers, the architects, everyone within the project is formed into a limited company. And this allows the client to put in their amount of money, whether it's 20 million, 100 million, 500 million, into the project. And then everyone has a shared pain, shared gain reward structure. It is on everyone to spot issues on site, flag things up early, such that you can engineer out problems quickly. And this means that if you deliver a project on time or ahead of time and under budget, everyone gets a share of the pot of cash. Equally, if a project runs over or runs over budget, everyone then takes a hit. And it changes the behavior and the attitudes on the project in such a profound way, rather than being the usual fisticuffs and I'm going to sue you, no you're not, you're going to sue us. We're badly paved as a construction sector, but there is hope. And the IPI is a fantastic procurement. If you haven't read up on it, I suggest you go and find some information. There's a brilliant video that we recorded back in 2016 about it at Digital Construction Week that's on our YouTube channel. So please do have a watch of that. But it will introduce you to the IPI project in far more detail and far better than I have just now. But the benefit of this is the third building that we've delivered using the IPI framework. All three buildings have been under budget. All three buildings have been delivered ahead of schedule. And for a client such as a college, delivering something ahead of schedule means they can get the academics in earlier, means they can get the students in earlier, which just benefits all round. And this building, built completely digitally. I have been walking around this building for 4 years, right from early concept artists at RIBA Stage 1, right through to technical design, RIBA Stage 4, and handover design at RIBA Stage 6. And I got to step foot in the building 3 weeks ago for the first time. And it was just like I'd been there and I'd been around that building so many times virtually. It was just walking into something that was familiar and everything was in its place. And it was amazing. And those students have gone in and it's been such a success. that they're already looking at building the next one. And the students love the building facilities as well, because they were part of the design process. They got to feed in of, hey, I'd like this space. I think that would be quite useful to be in. So educating the future is critical. And this is now where we start using technologies and things to engage those students, because if you say, right, construction is hard hats, high vis and muddy boots, that's going to turn a 15, 16-year-old off. You say, hey, look, on a daily basis, I'm using one of these to do my job. Whoa, suddenly they're engaged. Gaming technology in construction, what is this new revolution? Well, point is, we've been doing this for 5, 6 years now. A lot of companies are beginning to wake up to the use of digital technologies to engage the future generation. And that is really superb. Finally, technical design. Hey, it's where we all have all the fun. This is a project we were involved on. This is K1 Knightsbridge. Prime Resi commercial retrofit, grade 2 listed facade. Everything behind that facade was to go, demolished, completely gutted, and new build behind that facade whilst retaining that grade 2 listed facade. The down on the ground floor, we've got the premium headquarters and shop fronts for Apple and Burberry, 2 huge brands. The challenge on this project, we had an active Transport for London tube line underneath us, including Knightsbridge Station physically under our feet. So during the demolition, we had to maintain 3 air vents down to the London Underground. We couldn't stop the trains from running because that would have caused chaos and gridlock in the centre of London. So there are a lot of technical challenges. So deploying processes and technologies like 4D planning to make sure that we built that building in the right sequence and made sure that everyone was engaged with it in the right time became very critical. And the coordination of complex services, making sure that we could fit all of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing into that building that we needed to, was a real challenge. And we solved that challenge and made it transparent to everyone on the job, not just the client and the contractor, but right down to the subcontractors on site, by bringing them into the 3D models at life size using technology. And this is a technology that I'm stood in at the moment. This is the Fullmax Cave, and I'm going to show you a video quickly now so you get an appreciation of what the technology is.
In a world where unlimited data sits at our fingertips, the Fullmax virtual reality environment allows you to harness the power of detail and knowledge. Standing at life size within project data, your teams will benefit from more engaging training, improved health and safety awareness, and a greater understanding of live project information. The Fullmax fits easily into design offices, site cabins, showrooms, classrooms, and mobile exhibition vehicles, making it possible to turn any space into an immersive environment. The touchscreen interface and games controller make it easy for anyone to load and interact with models and visualizations, improving collaboration, learning, and complex data understanding without needing to learn new software. An emphasis on data security sees the Fullmax with native support for common data environments, as data can be securely processed and stored within your organization and viewable within a few clicks. Fullmax supports data from laser and Matterport scanners, 360-degree cameras, as well as software tools from Autodesk, Bentley, Dassault, Revizzo, Trimble, and many more. With a new dawn rising for digital content delivery and the opportunities this brings, the innovative Fullmax technology gives users a unique experience not found with traditional tools, helping your teams to collaborate and facilitates vital stakeholder engagement. To learn more about how Fullmax can improve your project outcomes, enhance learning experiences, save you time and money, and give peace of mind, visit fullmax.co.uk.
So there we go, the Fullmax technology. As I say, I'm stood inside it at the moment. It is as simple to use as an iPad because it's controlled by a touch screen and a games controller. You can go into buildings, you can navigate around, and I mean, even tools like, I keep one in my pocket quite regularly, 360-degree camera, absolutely powerful piece of technology. I mean, £500 camera saved us £40,000 the first time we deployed it on a project. Every one of my engineers has one of these in their kit bag now because it meant that we could go out, record a short video, but it wasn't just a video of a problem. It was a video showing the context all around the camera as well. we could stand inside and understand that without physically having to travel to site. We've had this for clients being able to come and visit their sites virtually on a weekly basis. We support technologies like Matterport. So you've got the three-dimensional scan of an environment. Tell you what, whilst I'm stood in here, I'm just going to use the touch screen off to my left. So apologies, my hand's going out of shot, but let me just jump straight into a Matterport scan. So this was used on the London Underground, so on the Elizabeth line, so Crossrail. And using this with thanks to Bam Nuttall, this was scanned every 2 weeks. This is 320 laser scans or Matterport scans, and they were then able to move physically around site. I'm just driving it with an Xbox controller. There's enough visual detail in there to see emergency exit signage. We can physically move around, but we even had the London Fire Brigade coming in and looking at things like their fire hydrant locations. Traditionally, on an underground project or any infrastructure project like this, they'd have to shut the site down to come in and do their inspection. Because this site was scanned every 2 weeks, they had an accurate as-built model, which they were able to do things like inspections from. And they still came in and did their rubber stamping exercise at the end of the project, but they were able to sign off every single one of the stations digitally without having to shut down operations on site, which is just extremely powerful. So that leaves me with the end there. So digital project delivery, the use of people, process, and technology together really drives home powerful gains. And what I'd like to see, what we as Fulcro like to feel ourselves are, we are the AMG badge on the back of Mercedes. We are the ProDrive on the back of a McLaren. If you've got a Fulcro badge on your project should go faster, better, with more resilient outcomes. And that's who we are as Fulcro, using technology like the Fullmax. And this is how we deliver digital project delivery. And going back to our mantra, it's all about creating project certainty. So thank you for your time today. I look forward to answering questions from you now.
Thanks very much indeed, Max. Really interesting. I have to say that the only question we have at the moment, official one, is what kind of camera is the 360 camera?
Sure. So a traditional camera, sorry, I'm going to get a bit closer to the camera, so I'm going to have to duck down. But a traditional camera, like you'd find on your phone or something, will take an image in one direction. A 360-degree camera doesn't just have one lens, it has two on either side of the unit. And this allows you to then take a full 360-degree image around that camera. Let me just load up something behind me in the Fullmax. Now, 360-degree cameras can do stills, but quite equally, they can also do, let me just mute the computer, 360-degree video. So this video here, we strapped a 360 camera underneath a drone, and this is one of the UNESCO World Heritage sites out in Cambodia. And because it's 360-degree imagery, we can spin around it, we can tilt up and down, and it's extremely powerful tool to use. We've used this for health and safety briefings. So one of our clients uses it a lot for health and safety because it's as simple as taking the camera out on site, recording the site conditions if they've changed, and they can then use this to reintroduce people and retrain them. In this case, this was a MACE project, 4 Steps to Safety, which is one of the programs they ran internally. And it's all about making sure that site operatives were going out to site wearing the correct PPE, making sure they went through the tally system correctly, and using this as a virtual induction tool. So right down to showing the route to site, the mirror where people would have to go in. And the interesting thing was, if I just spin the video around, see a chap around the corner here who doesn't check himself in the mirror and is actually wearing the incorrect PPE. He's subsequently been retrained. So very powerful as a tool for introducing people to a site so something changes. The question there is, what 360 camera is this? Well, this is the Insta360 One X. But you've got the Ricoh Theta out in market. There's GoPro has 360-degree ones. It doesn't matter. 360-degree is 360-degree, and these technologies are becoming ubiquitous. I mean, you can pick one of these up from Argos for about £499, but it's so powerful. That's why we use it, because it enables our teams to get out on site and get back out onto the same site to check things. The project where it saved us £40,000, we are doing as-built modelling. So the building was already up. We had a CAD model that was provided to us, but the client was going, well, we've looked at the CAD model, it doesn't match what's been built. So traditionally, what you'd do at that point is you'd send an engineer out to site with his CAD laptop, and anywhere there was something that wasn't quite right, he'd have to remodel it. That would require multiple trips out to site, massive carbon footprint of sending an engineer to site, a lot of downtime with him being in a car driving to a site that's an hour and a half away, so 3 hours of downtime per day. Sent him out once with a 360 camera. He walked around the entire building in about 2 hours, recorded the entire building, and then spent a few weeks putting that model together in an environment like this, or working at his laptop with a couple of large screens so he felt immersed within the building. And that is how it saved us 40 grand. So yeah, great question. So that's why we use 360-degree cameras.
I very much like the behavioural change you got as well with this safety thing. Okay, we got a question here, John Savage. The IPI project route sounded excellent, but is there a size project too small to get digital technology to be feasible?
It's a very good question. How small is small? To a lot of people, managing massive Kobe sheets in an Excel file, that's huge. But to Google, that's a tiny amount of data. So it comes down to perception. If you're a startup house builder where you may have a 2-3 man crew and you're maybe doing 2 or 3 houses a year, digital technologies might seem like a very difficult thing to jump on top of. But having a mobile phone in your pocket with, say, a snagging app, you can go away and do that very quickly and digitize your data. Equally, if you're a company the size of, I don't know, Skanska, Mace, any of the big 10 contractors here in the UK, digitization is at the core of what they do, because they have to ensure that teams and designers are working efficiently. But they could be involved on a small power project. They could be involved on a massive project such as HS2. So I wouldn't say there is a limit to the project size where technology can help. Certainly some technologies are more applicable to different sizes of projects, but I'd say every project can benefit from some form of digitization, whether it's just to help the process along a bit or make people more efficient out on site, or enable teams to collaborate more effectively. I mean, one of the big things we're seeing at the moment is being able to get models, 3-dimensional models, out onto site. So the trades, who are traditionally the last in the chain to pick up technology, rather than providing them with an A0 sheet that might be out of date going, this is what you're building, and by the way, we've taken the entire 3-dimensional building and squashed it onto a piece of paper, and you've now got to imagine what that 3-dimensional install looks like from this 2D piece of paper. We're now giving them iPads and going, here, look, here's the 3D model. This is linked straight to the common data environment. We've got the full security of that link, so we can remotely wipe the iPad if we need to, if it falls into the wrong hands. We've got the ability to secure that data, so they have to log in with the password. We know who's seen the data, when they accessed it. But they have the benefit of not just trying to interpret a 2D sheet. They can see the 3D model. They can overlay that 2D sheet digitally onto the 3D model as well. So I wouldn't say there's any size limitation to deployment of technology. It's just a matter of hooking the technology into your people and your process. And it's, as I say, the cherry on top that streamlines things. So if you're a small company and you're looking at technology and going, wow, there's a lot of cost there, rather than thinking about the initial cost, think about what it might do to improve your efficiencies. And then maybe the cost isn't so much the barrier. It's ensuring the people are using it correctly. So are there any other questions?
We've got other questions coming in, so let's just put the next one up, please. Was it difficult to get buy-in for the investment in technology and digitization? Now, I don't know if they're referring to any specific problem, but I think my sort of spin on this is, yeah, in an industry which has historically low margins, is it difficult to get buy-in, do you think, for people in the construction sector to actually invest in this?
Extremely so. Extremely so. And this is where innovation really needs to be at the core of everything we do. If people have a culture of innovation, technical buy-in suddenly becomes part of the innovation. And we've seen this really successfully deployed. So back in 2012, when we were working on Crossrail, which is now the Elizabeth line, there was an internal program within Crossrail called Innovate 18. And what it gave was small pots of money for teams to bid into and go, I've got an idea. I think it's going to improve things. Can I try it? To apply to the program, you wrote a one-pager. They gave you a standard template, and it was title of idea, your aspirations of what it's going to resolve, your key performance indicators that you think these are the things we're going to test it against, and then a detailed time of what's it going to cost and how long is it going to take. And projects typically ran 6 to 18 months in length. Some were shorter, some were longer. But that was the typical project, and they could bid for anything between £50 and £20,000. And that innovation pot was made available through Crossrail as a project as a whole. So anyone from all the contractors involved and even subcontractors could bid into that. And what this fostered was a culture of innovation. Now, if your project succeeded, you wrote a one-pager with a return on investment, how it succeeded, why you should implement it. And if it failed, you wrote a one-pager on the ROI, why it failed, things you might change in the future. And this was all posted up onto a public intranet called Innovate 18 within Crossrail. And we ran a pinched with pride system. If something worked well, you went in and you pinched it and you built on top of it. And then you published back to the portal saying, these are the changes that we've made to this innovation. It's working even better. And I mean, one of the most simplest but most impactful ones that I saw on there was site inspection of creep sensors. So you've all seen creep sensors before. They're a sticky thing that you stick on the wall, and if a crack grows, you can visually see how much that crack has grown. And what they were doing was they were sending guys out on site. Bear in mind, they're working in a lot of places beside live operating red line areas such as active tube lines. There might be 415 volts, stupid amount of amps running through the third rail that they're working in proximity to. And these guys are going out with aluminium ladders to go up 8 or 9 steps to take a photo with a digital camera of a creep sensor. And then they were having to go back, type it all up when they got back to the office, upload the images. Massive risk there of working at height, massive risk of where they're working with an aluminium ladder. And the innovation for £5 was a selfie stick and a free app on the phone. So the engineer could go along with the selfie stick, take a photo by clicking the button. The camera on their phone has already taken the photo. They type up their notes on the phone, upload it to the cloud, job done. No more ladders and a nice insulated selfie stick. So even if they touched it on third rail, they weren't going to be in danger. And that innovation there was pinched with pride across the entire project. Everyone used that one. And so investment in technology can be difficult. People see technology as being a big cost because, oh, we've got to get the right infrastructure in place. We've got to go through all the ratification processes to make sure it fits within our ISO accreditation for data security and all that sort of stuff. But technology, the way I'd like to spin it is, don't look at the upfront cost, look at the return on investment potential. And suddenly it changes the tone of how do we innovate? How do we invest in technology? Because if a technology for every pound spent is going to save you 15, it's a no-brainer, go for it. If that technology is going to give you that return on investment, it doesn't matter if it's a high initial cost, it's going to save you so much over the usage. And it's trying to get people to demonstrate that innovation and that expense is going to give that return on investment. And we see it far too often. We'll get someone new to the sector coming in, maybe fresh out of university, or someone coming up through an apprenticeship scheme who has grown up with tools like this, and they play games and they go out and they're on their smartphones and they see something and go, well, why the hell are we doing it that way? I could get all of that information on my mobile device just for the sake of having a £20 app. Innovation is typically killed by people going, well, we're a risk-averse sector, and no, we've done it this way for the last 200 years. this is how we've always done it, we're going to do it this way. Someone will only typically ask to innovate 2 or 3 times. And if they're told no, they probably won't ask again. Innovation should be fostered. And this is something, and this, again, I keep going back to innovation, but the question about, is it difficult to get buy-in and investment for technology and digitization? Well, it is, because people are stuck in their ways. But seeing technology as a monster is not going to help us as a sector. Seeing technology as an enabler and trying to build the process and the people around it, the technology suddenly isn't the cost. And it shouldn't be the reason that innovation is held back. So hopefully that's answered that question.
Certainly glad. I mean, it's music to my ears, having talked to organisations for a long time about non-value added activities, which you're certainly talking about with the guy with his ladder, not less his, let alone his safety. So
Yeah.
let's move on to the next one. What would be the first steps to implementation be, especially for modular?
Well, it comes down to the brief or the client's vision. Modular is a difficult one. Everyone likes to say they're doing modular. A lot of people are doing modular badly. Some people have cracked it. Some people are doing it very well. Even with the modular project we delivered in Brooklyn, there are lessons learned and things we could improve on. And it's nice to see that process is continuing. There is a modular company that span out of that project now, delivering more and more buildings. They've got 3 new buildings in Brooklyn due to be completed by the end of next year, which is just superb to see. But there is a great challenge in getting into something that's maybe non-traditional, something that companies haven't been involved in before. And this is where there are innovation catapults. That you've got things like the AMRC up at Coventry University. You've got, Sheffield University. You've got the MTC near Coventry. You've got a lot of different government accelerators and programs looking at these new innovative ways and design for manufacture. There are lots of ideas out there. It's drawing them together into a coherent route. And yes, there is a technical challenge there. I'm not sure whether the question was coming from a client or whether the question there was coming from a contractor or a subcontractor. But it's typically, we see the adoption of modular is driven by a client's aspiration for being able to do repeatable process and churning out the same thing over and over. And I know this modular is seen by a lot of people as the hateful Lego brick way of building. Doesn't have to be. There's a fantastic video that was doing the rounds on LinkedIn a few weeks back out of China, of all places, where they were showing off a modular building, but it was modular to the point of being customizable enough so that people could choose their living space right down to the end user. So the prospective owner or tenant of that building choosing the space they wanted to live in. Now, we've seen this, again, going back to automation and the automotive sector. Jaguar Land Rover, as an example, just down the road from us, they have a production line. But that production line doesn't just churn out one model over and over. That production line churns out every model within their arsenal. And they have a just-in-time effect where everything is brought to the production line to produce that unit at the right time. So they could have an E-Pace roll off the line at the same time they've got the new Discovery right behind it. But they've got that customizability and standardization at the same time to a level where you've got the ability to not just have a grey cardboard box. You've got the ability to customize what you want whilst still using the same process to roll it off. So if you look at our factory out in Brooklyn, we had a framing table right next to our SLS framing machine. That was the thing that was cutting out the steel frame that clipped together. And that was being driven straight from CAD. So it was coming out in the right lengths. They put it onto the framing table that had overhead laser projection to show them where to put things. So again, removing some of the risk because you're giving them the information they need at the right time. And yes, there is a level of ramping up to get to that sort of stage so you can just turn the handle and have things coming off the production line. But the opportunities that can open up in the future is huge. So if you're interested in modular, have a look at the AMRC. That's the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre up at Sheffield. Have a look at the MTC in Coventry. Have a look at the government accelerators around modern methods of construction, or MMC. And there are programs there to help people get in and drive it forwards. But yeah, I'd say the client typically drives the need for modular. The contractor can always suggest modular as an approach.
Okay, thanks, Max. We've got about 4 minutes left. I've got 2 more questions, but let me just, before we take those questions, for anyone who's interested today in getting the CIPD certificate for attendance, Abraham, could you please put that up? So if you want to go and get your certificate, that's the place to go, and that's the event code to put in. Okay, many thanks. We'll now go back to the questions if we can. And if we run over with time, I apologize. We do have another session next week. We're just finalizing a speaker. So as soon as we have it, we will get out to you via email and of course through Twitter, etc. So do look out for next week. We'll be here. So we have 2 questions left in about 3 minutes, Max.
Right.
How do we in the
UK
UK compare to the rest of the world in terms of digital technology competency? I would assume in the construction sector.
I'd say, just looking at the sector and from the engagements I've had in the US, in the Middle East, and wider afield, I'd say we're doing pretty well. I'd say that's probably down to the mandate of BIM in 2016. There are a lot of gaps, that we have a lot of consultancies that sprang up going, you're doing BIM, this is how you do BIM. Well, yeah, we're seeing some of those now spring up around digital twins. But yeah, I'd say the UK is pretty good with our digital competency. There's still quite a long way to go. People are still arguing about standards a lot of the time. So ensuring when you go onto a project, you know what version of Uniclass you're using. Are you delivering COBie? What standards are you working to? Critical questions to ask before starting a project. But I'd say we are doing pretty well in the UK with respects to digitization around construction.
Great, thanks. The last question, what platform are the site guys using to view 3D information? We've got another question popped up. I know, I think it's gone now. No, that's it. That's the last one.
So there's lots of platforms out there, things like Dalux, Revisto, BIMsite, VisiLean. There are a lot of tools out there that enable you to put a 3D model onto a mobile device. I work a lot with Revisto. They are a very powerful tool, but the real benefit I see there is the real-time collaboration, which I'm not seeing in many of the tools, excuse me, in the tools at the moment. And this allows the site teams to go out and do their snagging within 3D, but equally they can do it on the 2D sheet as well. So they can really detail where that is. And that is then in context that everyone in the team can then see how that is. You get the burn down charts and the Kanban and all the stuff you'd want around the agile workflows, but being able to engage the teams out on site with 3D compared to just having 2D sheets, it doesn't matter what tool you're using, it can only be a good thing, in my opinion. So yeah, the main ones I'm seeing out there, as I say, Dalux, Revisto, VisiLean, a couple others, BIMtrack and things. Yeah, just it doesn't really matter what you use. They all have different prices, different capabilities, but getting the information into the hands of the teams is more important than the technology that you're utilizing to do that, because the information is what's going to deliver your project.
Thanks, Max. I think that's all the questions. We certainly is. We're just pulling up to the completion of the hour. Many thanks. I found it really interesting. I'm sure other people do find the same as I did find the same as me. Please do take just a moment or two to fill in the feedback survey. That would be great. We will be posting this up and we will be advertised, because I'm sure this is something other people will want to view, listen to again. So if we could have your slides, Max, if we don't have them, we can put that up along with the recording.
Certainly.
Thanks very much to everyone who came along today. Do look out for next week's posting. Do hope to see you then. Finally, once again, thanks, Max. And to everyone, have a great weekend. All the best.
Oh,
bye.
Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.